Once I have the final version of my hand-drawn artwork, I move the picture onto tracing paper using a soft lead pencil. This yields my artwork in a form that can be transferred to the axehead I created for this project. At this point, I'm using the tracing paper version of the artwork to transfer it onto the axehead that I previously spray painted white. The side of the paper with the soft lead pencil drawing is placed face down onto the axe head, and I retrace the entire picture on the clean side of the paper to move the image onto the axe head. Once I remove the tracing paper, you can see the picture on the axe head. Note that I do not include some of the fine details, like all of the treasure at this time. That level of detail is best drawn directly onto the axe head later. I am now beginning the process of removing resist to begin the etching process. I start by removing the paint from whatever aspect of my picture is to appear the farthest into the background. In this case, that is all of the blank space that represents the dark areas of the cave. This is a long process that involves numerous different styles and sizes of needles. Removing the background resist from both sides of this axe head took over 4 hours. The axe head has been submerged in ferric chloride for about 2 hours. This is longer than most of my etching periods, but I wanted a fairly deep etch for the background of the axe. I clean the steel particles off the surface of the axe head a number of times during the process using a toothbrush. Once I complete the etching period, the head is brushed with a solution of baking soda and water to neutralize the acid. After thoroughly washing the axe head to remove any residues from the etching process, I use a hair dryer to completely dry the steel so that rust formation is minimized for the rest of the etching process. The second etching cycle involved only removing a small amount of resist, that from the back level of the cave ceiling and some of the bottom stalagmites. Preparing for the third etch is much more involved as I begin work on some of the treasure hoard. At this point, it is very important to keep the proper depth perspective in mind and be certain that you only remove resist from those items that are the furthest back in the treasure hoard at this time. The coins in the center portion of the treasure hoard are being created not by removing resist from the coins themselves, but removing resist from behind the small circular coins so that the coins will stick out further than the rest of the image. Preparing for the fourth etch, I'm removing resist from behind the coins on the top portion of the treasure hoard located on the beard of the axe. Creating these coins took an inordinate amount of time. Here I am removing the axe head from the ferric chloride after completion of the fourth etching cycle. Each of the etching cycles, 2 through 4, were about an hour in length instead of the original one being 2 hours. As before, I neutralize the acid, wash the blade clean, and use a hair dryer to dry it off before proceeding. Preparing for the fifth etch involves removing resist from the scale details on the dragon's body. Additionally, I removed the resist from the remainder of the cave ceiling and a few more details on the cave floor. Prior to etching, I decided I need some additional depth definition in portions of the gold coin piles. I'm using nail polish to cover those portions so they will stop being etched and will be moved further into the front of my work. As I get ready for the sixth etching cycle, I'm doing the fine detailed scales that cover the dragon's legs. You will see that I have also removed all of the resist from the dragon's belly, as well as done some more work on the treasure hoard. The order of the work has been carefully planned to create a more realistic three-dimensional look. It took many, many hours to prepare the work for the seventh etch. Here I am removing all of the paint from the dragon's body scales and back spikes. It is more difficult to remove the paint since the scale outlines were already etched into the steel. Once I scratch the paint away, you'll see that I use a Q-tip soaked in nail polish remover to carefully remove the remaining paint that gets stuck in the scales. It is critical that you do not get too close to other painted areas of the work when using nail polish remover. To get ready for the eighth etch, I'm removing all of the resist from the frill surrounding the dragon's head. I also removed all of the resist from the dragon's legs. I am now using a Q-tip and nail polish remover to remove the nail polish I earlier placed over portions of the dragon's hoard. I decided it's time to once again start etching these spots. Preparing for the 10th etch, I carefully remove all of the resist from the dragon's tail, leaving only the spikes covered with paint. I also remove the resist from his other horn and a few more of his facial features. This image is after the 10th etching cycle. For the 11th and final cycle, I remove all of the remaining resist from the axe head, and I will etch to even out all of the final edges of the image. Now that I've completed my etching, the real fun part begins. You will note that the axe head does not look like much prior to me sanding it with 1200 grit paper. But wet sanding begins to reveal the details, and you finally get to see if all of your hard work was successful. How much you sand at this point is definitely a matter of artistic preference. Next, I am applying gun bluing to the entire axe head. This darkens every part of the work. I sanded a second time with 2000 grit sandpaper, this time off camera, to lighten the highest spots of the artwork and leave different levels of shadows in the recesses. Finally, I apply a light coat of oil to the entire blade to protect it from rust, which can easily occur at this stage in the process.